Art Loft is brought to you by
Where there is freedom, there is expression. The Florida Keys and Key West.
and the Friends of South Florida PBS.
Art Loft. It's the pulse of what's happening in our own backyard, as well as a taste of the arts across the United States.
Every story deserves to be heard.
In this episode, theater and performance. The stage as the setting for artistic expression and the creative ways performance can remind us of our shared experience.
My name is Larry Fields, and I am the Executive and Artistic Director at Fantasy Theater Factory at the Sandro Rivers Theater. Fantasy Theater Factory, we have a long history. We've been around for about 40 years. And we started really with a focus on theater for young audiences. So that's the theater for children in like elementary school. Amazing. People who are theater patrons, patrons of the arts, they don't just materialize into adulthood. It's something that people grow up doing from the time that they're children. Theater for kids is in many ways the concepts are the same. It's got to be engaging. We have to keep their attention, and children, of course, don't have a lot of the pretenses that adults might have. An adult might sit through a really dud show and just kind of be polite and go, okay, but if you've lost the kids, you know it. We have roots in Commedia dell'arte and in sort of a broad slapstick style, so with a lot of elements of clown and things like that, and so it's really engaging, and everything that we do has an educational component to it. So we have a couple of our big pillars of our mission are environmental education and literacy. Coming into the Sandro Rivers Theater as the managing operator, we have expanded that mission. Our mission is still primarily focused on theater for young audiences, but we've now added programming for the general community. So that includes things like our concert series and even a comedy series and an art exhibition series. So we've really expanded what we do. And part of that also is doing theater for adult audiences too. We did a program called Deep Fake, which is about this concept of what can you believe now? And it was a devised theater piece, which is where the creative team, the actors and the director and the designers, everyone comes together and is a collaborator. It's like most things, things did not go to plan, but happily so. I started as an actor. That's what I went to school for, and that's what I was down here doing. I was working at all the different companies, and I auditioned for a company called Fantasy Theater Factory as an actor, and they wouldn't have me the first time around, but persistence pays off. And I re-auditioned, and they were great. I really connected with what it is that we do. Well, the Sandro Rivers Theater really is a gem in our community. First of all, we're really centrally located. We're right on Northwest 62nd Street and 7th Avenue, one block off of I-95. A lot of what we do is free and low cost. $5 and $10 tickets are sort of the norm for us because, again, part of our mission is making sure that, this is accessible to everybody. This is actually part of Miami-Dade County's plan to have smaller cultural venues in the community. So that's why, Miami-Dade is doing the Westchester Cultural Facility further south. And that was part of the reason that this facility was put here. So that, people don't really have to leave their communities to go and experience a really, first-rate cultural facility.
She gave me her recipe.
My name is Shirley Richardson, and I am the co-founder and executive director of El Montama Company. We are the oldest, not just African-American theater company, but the oldest theater company here in Miami-Dade County. M. Ensemble Company started in 1971. That's a long story. Under the direction and founder, the late T.G. Cooper. And he decided to come to the University of Miami and pick up his master's degree. And while he was there, he had to do a project called Pearly Victorious, and he needed a black cast and a white cast. Unfortunately, there weren't many black students on campus at the University of Miami during that time. I think there were about 3 of us, so he recruited the 3 of us. T.G. left, but before he left some money, and he left a staff in place, and we maintained that relationship with him, until his passing. We're here now at the Sandrell Rivers Theater after being bounced around from one place to another. I can't even tell you how many places we've been. There've been so many, trying to keep up the legacy. Being in this space, it allows the company to show the audience the technical aspects, because in many places that we've been in, we have not been able to really see it like we really want to see it, When we did Kings of Harlem, we had all these seats were out, and they were conformed into a basketball stadium. The space was set up, to give you that ambiance, being back in that time in this old stadium where the first black basketball team played, and the story behind all of that. But the biggest impact is that the presentations that we bring to the stage is the plays, it's the playwrights, the plays that people never heard of, stories that they never heard of. These are the stories, these are our stories, these are our words. And so that's important. It's a lot of work, but it's the passion that keeps us going. And hopefully when it's time to pass that torch, we will be able to identify those people who has that same kind of passion and willing to make the sacrifices to keep it going. We're 50 years old now. So that is the legacy, and we are an institution.
To get tickets and information on both the Fantasy Theater Factory and M Ensemble, visit SandrellRiversTheater.com. Head to Instagram and visit @Miami City Ballet to find out more about upcoming shows and for a behind-the-scenes look with performers. Next up, Rocky Mountain PBS gives us a contemporary look at how Impressionism influenced more than just the visual arts.
You know, the arts at the time they had cross-pollination. At the same time when the Impressionist movement was happening, there were impressionistic tendency in poetry and so in music. So artists at the time were not in a vacuum. And the music, because it responds to the same sort of stylistic tendency, we do believe that it helps our visitors immerse more in a time and go back in time. My name is Angelica Daneo. I am Chief Curator and Curator of European Art before 1900 at the Denver Art Museum. As we often do in exhibition, we actually include music throughout our galleries, and we did the same this time with our Claude Monet exhibition. We listen to music of the time and trying to find the right rhythm for certain paintings. You might have something that is very slow and sort of with a slower cadence, which doesn't go well with the scenes of Bordighera, which are an explosion of colors and an explosion of brilliance. So we do look at the paintings and we do listen into the music, and like any visitors, really try to look, does this help me when I look at this painting?
My name is Lawrence Golan, and I'm a symphony orchestra conductor, and I'm the music director of the Denver Philharmonic Orchestra. We have this wonderful partnership with the Denver Art Museum. The partnership revolves around the Monet exhibit. Obviously, they'll be having many wonderful paintings by the great French Impressionistic painter Claude Monet. And we will be playing this French Impressionistic concert. The Impressionistic movement in music took place primarily in France around the turn of the last century, so around 1900. One thing the Impressionistic composers were very concerned with was what is the emotion that the listener will feel. Debussy's Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun is perhaps the quintessential Impressionistic piece. It starts out with just flute solo by itself, with no accompaniment, and even the notes that Debussy chose for that opening solo are very chromatic, meaning it doesn't establish a key, it doesn't establish any one note as being more prominent. It just sort of meanders around through different notes. That is emblematic of Impressionism, both in music and in art, where we're not exactly sure what we're looking at or what we're listening to. It sounds very nice, but what exactly is that? With the French Impressionistic painters, similarly, they weren't trying to be very realistic with them. It was more like alluding to an image.
The painting behind my back is Boulevard des Capucines by Monet, painted around 1873. And it has all the qualities of this particular movement. And Monet does it with great effects, giving really the impression of a busy street. It doesn't define every single top hat. It doesn't define every single gown and petticoat. And so this was the criticism from the intellectuals that were favoring the Academy. This is the critic Louis Leroy, who was the one that gave the derogatory term Impressionism, who really criticized this black figures. In fact, he called them black tongue lickings. This was looked unfinished. It looked too sketchy. But this was not the point of the Impressionists. They wanted to give the impression, the feeling of that scene in that moment.
That has translated into the music in a similar way. You get the impression of a certain structure or of a certain harmony, but it's not crystal clear.
WGBH Boston takes us to the stage for a pivotal moment in theater history reimagined into a new production. Jared Bowen reports.
We have a story we want to tell you about a play that changed my life.
Indecent is Pulitzer Prize winner Paula Vogel's new play about an incendiary one. Written more than 100 years ago, God of Vengeance is a Yiddish drama by Polish playwright Sholem Asch. It's about a brothel owner eager to see his daughter move up in society by marrying a rabbi's son.
The only hitch is the daughter has fallen in love with a prostitute downstairs. So imagine this being written in 1906. The first love presented between two women, and certainly the first kiss.
In Indecent, Vogel tracks the play from its inception to its resurrection during World War II. She's found a kindred spirit in channeling the youthful, audacious playwright.
Once upon a time, I was a young playwright myself, so I do think that there's a young playwright principle where you want to walk into the salon and light the bomb and throw it into the salon. Here's my new play. Boom!
Despite its lesbian subject matter, when God of Vengeance first debuted, it actually wasn't controversial.
The love between women was seen as a kind of pure and beautiful love story by the men in the Yiddish salon, in the Yiddish Renaissance. It was seen as something that was beautiful. It went on tour from 1907 all over Europe.
The scandal came when God of Vengeance finally opened on Broadway in 1923. An anti-immigration sentiment was taking hold in the U.S., and seeing the play for the first time, the mainstream Christian audience was unnerved.
And what is happening is that there is a great deal of hatred, the rise of the KKK, and the Jew is seen as someone who is invading American soil. So here, I mean, all of these issues, it's when people say, you know, what is Indecent about? Yes, it's about a play, but it's really not about the censorship of the play. It's really not just all of the multiple love stories. It's how do we describe or catch a moment in time when we as a country, all of our neighbors, all of our friends, all of our family are in danger.
It was a real lightning rod for tremendously, important issues and questions about immigration.
Rebecca Teichman is Indecent's director. She discovered God of Vengeance as a graduate student at Yale, which also houses Sholem Asch's papers.
He's asking about what, in a deeply corrupt world, is there the potential for true love in a world that conspires so heavily against the basic principle of love.
Shortly after the play opened on Broadway, it was actually a rabbi who filed a complaint, concerned over how his community was being portrayed. In short order, the cast, producer, and theater owner were put on trial for obscenity.
What was the tone of that trial?
Nobody was allowed to get onto the stand. So the deck was really, really stacked.
The writer of world literature, I couldn't walk into that court.
Roughly 10 years ago, Teichman brought the story to Vogel, who then spent the next 7 years writing Indecent.
I got to imagine, well, what was it like when my grandparents came to this country? What was it like to walk down the Lower East Side? What was it like to speak Yiddish? What was it like to know all of those songs?
Music is both instrumental to how Indecent unfolds and how Vogel writes. She creates soundtracks to guide her through each act.
Of all the boys I've known, and I've known some.
At my computer, and the music is so very beautiful. It made me weep every night.
My heart grew light and this whole world seemed new to me.
I feel that music is the most pure art form. I hope I don't get drummed out of the Dramatists Guild for saying this. But I feel that music is pure emotion.
When it opened on Broadway in 2017, Indecent marked the legendary playwright's long overdue Broadway debut. And Teichman won a Tony for her direction.
Musically, it feels like we bottom out for too long with the pause.
I don't know that I see it as a personal validation, but a real deep kind of honoring of the power of this story.
The production here is a rare remounting of the Broadway one, with nearly the full cast intact. As Indecent continues to find life, Its creators say it also continues to find resonance.
I'm heartbroken, honestly, to say. It feels more and more relevant than I wished, I ever could have wished it would.
I am done being in a country that laughs at the way I speak.
I feel that this is a play about us knowing in this moment of time, who are the immigrants in America? Who is this happening to now? What side are we on? Are we paying attention?
Tangible love is what I'm looking for. Tangible love is what I'm looking for. And I forget what it feels like to be held by a man who can show me, show me.
The Key Largo Original Music Festival is basically 6 days of local and out-of-town talent, and the idea for the festival is to bring musicians together, to have that kind of camaraderie and idea sharing and all that kind of stuff, and then of course play it for the guests and for the people that live here in the Florida Keys. And the festival is set up in sets, and what we do is we mix artists, local artists and out-of-town artists kind of together. A lot of times they know each other, but sometimes they don't. And then sometimes, depending on how much they played together or just how well they get along and click, then they all play as well, and it's pretty magical.
Oh, it's no surprise, my fairy tale dream appeared from the sky into real life.
My name is Adrienne Zalondic, and I am really happy to be a part of the Key Largo Original Music Fest. Kongtown was a song that I wrote in the kitchen of my rent-controlled apartment that I gave up. I came down to visit the Keys, loved it, and decided to move there. So I went back home, packed up all my stuff, and wrote this tune, Kongtown, because everything's on Conch Rock in the Keys.
In the sunset hour, she's picturesque. She's the little rock about as south as you can go. It's Kongtown.
Jim Halfpenny and Sean Byrne and Melody have been coming to this festival for a long time. I know that both Jim and Sean can jam on anything without knowing the songs. So it's really wonderful that it becomes like this whole bigger sound than you just playing by yourself, because they're capable of joining in and jamming with you. It's awesome.
Every new thing that I get just seems to break, but you can always depend on old dogs and dear old friends. Every good thing.
Songwriters are looking for an outlet for original music, and so what our festival does is it allows those songwriters to have a venue to play their original music, and also for guests to be able to hear the original music from the songwriters. So the other thing that's really cool is when a songwriter comes to our festival and has had a big hit, you get to hear the song the way they meant for it to be heard and played.
Well, thank God I'm a simple man. Thank you.
Head to KeyLargoOriginalMusicFest.com to find out more about this year's festival.
Art Loft is brought to you by
Where there is freedom, there is expression. The Florida Keys and Key West.
and the Friends of South Florida PBS.